The Xarillians were one of the most powerful alien races in the galaxy. Their ships moved faster than light, their cities floated in the sky, and their knowledge of science was far beyond what most species could imagine. They looked almost human, tall, elegant, with glowing silver eyes, but they believed they were far superior to all other beings, including humans. Princess Vira stood on the grand platform of the Celestial Summit, a massive space station where leaders from different civilizations had gathered. She wore a flowing silver robe that shimmered under the artificial lights, her arms crossed as she observed the latest arrival, Earth's representative. Her lips curled into a smirk, so this was the best humanity had to offer. Ethan Carter stepped forward, adjusting his plain black jacket. He wasn't a politician or a warrior. He was an engineer, chosen to represent Earth not because of strength, but because of intelligence. His brown hair was slightly messy, and there was nothing extraordinary about his appearance. But his eyes, sharp and full of curiosity, held something most aliens overlooked. The moment Ethan walked in, the room fell silent. Vira's people whispered among themselves, "Is this truly a human? So weak-looking. How did their species even make it into space?" Sarah chuckled. "A human engineer. This should be amusing." Ethan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He had been warned that some alien species would underestimate him, and the Xarillians were known for their arrogance. He wasn't here to impress them with words. He was here to prove something. The summit began with the usual speeches. Powerful races showed off their technology, ships that could bend space, weapons that could reshape planets, and machines that could heal any disease. Then, it was humanity's turn. Ethan stepped up, carrying only a small metallic device no larger than his hand. The aliens leaned in, expecting something grand. But all they saw was a simple energy module, no flashing lights, no dramatic design. Syra laughed. "This is your great invention." Ethan smiled. "Yes, but let me explain." He placed the device on the table. "Many of you have advanced technology, but your power systems depend on very specific environments. If something goes wrong, if your energy core fails, you need expensive repairs. This device can generate power anywhere. In extreme heat, freezing cold, deep space, it doesn't matter." The audience muttered. Some looked skeptical, others intrigued. Syra rolled her eyes. "That is basic. We have limitless energy sources. Your solution is unnecessary." Ethan kept his calm. "Maybe for you, but what about smaller colonies? What about ships that get stranded? Not every civilization has your luxuries." He tapped the device, and suddenly it glowed softly, drawing energy from the very air around it. "This can save lives." Some of the delegates nodded in approval. A few even whispered among themselves. But Sarah wasn't impressed. "Your human mind is too small to understand true technology. We Xarillians don't need such things." Ethan simply smirked. "I guess we'll see." At that moment, alarms blared across the station. A system failure. The entire summit hall flickered with red lights, and the station shook slightly. The voice rang out. "Warning. Power grid unstable. Emergency protocols activated." The Xarillians froze. Their systems weren't supposed to fail. Their technology was supposed to be perfect. Zyra's confident expression vanished. "What is happening?" One of her guards checked a floating screen. "The central power core is shutting down, Princess. If we don't fix it, the station will." A sudden explosion rocked the summit, and everything went dark. Zyra's heart pounded. How could this be happening? And then, in the middle of the chaos, Ethan Carter calmly picked up his small energy module. He pressed a button, and the device hummed to life, casting a warm blue glow in the darkness. Zyra stared at him in shock. Ethan smiled. "Still think it's unnecessary." For a moment, the entire celestial summit was plunged into darkness. The massive space station, home to some of the most powerful alien leaders, was now nothing more than a drifting structure in the void. The sudden power failure had caught everyone off guard, including the proud Princess Sci-Fi. She stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. The Xyrillians were supposed to have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Their systems were perfect, or so she had believed. The only source of light in the room was now the small energy module in Ethan Carter's hand. It emitted a soft blue glow, casting shadows on the walls. Still think it's unnecessary. Ethan's voice was calm, almost amused. Xira clenched her fists. She hated that he was right. Before she could respond, the station shook again, and a robotic voice echoed through the halls. Warning: power core failure. Gravity stabilizers offline. Emergency backup activating. The floor beneath them tilted slightly, and delegates from different species stumbled. Panic spread among the alien leaders. Without power, the station was slowly losing control. Xira turned to her guards. Get the engineers. Restore the core at once. One of them checked his communicator and frowned. Princess, the core chamber is completely shut down. The Xyrillian engineers are trapped inside. We can't reach them. Xira's silver eyes widened. Then how do we fix this? Ethan sighed and stepped forward. Let me guess. You don't have a backup system. The guards hesitated. Xira bit her lip. She didn't want to admit it. Ethan smirked. Of course you don't. You think nothing can ever go wrong. Xira glared at him. Do you have a solution, or are you just here to mock us? Ethan knelt down and placed his energy module on the floor. I don't mock people. I solve problems. He tapped a few buttons on his wrist device, analyzing the station's structure. If I can connect my module to the main power lines, I might be able to bring back emergency energy. Xira raised an eyebrow. Your tiny device can power an entire space station. Ethan shook his head. No, but it can restart critical systems long enough to fix the core. Do you have a manual override panel? Xira hesitated. The Xyrillians never needed manual controls. Their technology was too advanced for such things. But deep in the station, there was an old backup system, forgotten for centuries. She sighed. There's one. But it's in the lower maintenance deck. Great, Ethan said. Then let's get moving. Xira scoffed. You expect me to go down there with you? Ethan shrugged. If you want to sit here and wait for your perfect technology to fix itself, be my guest. Xira's pride flared, but she knew the truth. There was no other choice. She turned to her guards. Stay here and keep the delegates safe. I'll handle this human myself. One guard protested. Princess, it's dangerous. Xira silenced him with a glare. I am a Xyrillian royal. I do not fear danger. Ethan smiled. Great. Let's go. The descent into darkness. The lower maintenance deck was cold and silent. Emergency red lights flickered along the walls, casting eerie shadows as Xira and Ethan moved through the narrow corridors. Dust floated in the air, untouched for years. Xira wrinkled her nose. I can't believe we still have this ancient part of the station. Ethan smirked. Funny how the ancient parts might actually save your life. Xira ignored his comment. She hated depending on him. He was a human, a species she had always considered weak and unimpressive. But here, in the middle of a crisis, he walked with calm confidence, as if he had done this 100 times before. They reached a heavy metal door. It was sealed shut, and the digital panel beside it was dark. Xira cursed under her breath. The power failure locked the door. We need to override it manually. Ethan crouched down, pulling a small multi-tool from his pocket. Step aside, Princess. Xira folded her arms. Do you even know how Xyrillian systems work? Ethan didn't look up. I know how circuits work. Yours might be fancier, but in the end, it's all just power and flow. He removed the panel cover, revealing a complex tangle of wires and energy conduits. Xira watched as he carefully examined the connections. Most engineers would take hours to understand the layout, but Ethan's human adaptability allowed him to process it quickly. She was impressed, not that she'd ever admit it. After a few moments, Ethan pulled out a thin cable from his pocket and connected his energy module to the door's system. The blue glow pulsed, and suddenly, the door unlocked with a hiss. Zyra blinked. That actually worked. Ethan grinned. You sound surprised. She crossed her arms. I am. Ethan chuckled. You'll get used to it. The unexpected problem. Inside the control room, they found the manual override panel, covered in dust. The controls were old, but functional. Zyra moved toward it. I'll restart the systems. But as she reached for the controls, a sudden rumble shook the deck. A loud crash echoed from the hallway. Ethan turned. That didn't sound good. Zyra checked her communicator. The voice crackled through the static. Princess. The station. The message cut off. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Something else is happening. Zyra clenched her fists. She didn't know what, but she had a terrible feeling. Ethan took a deep breath. No time to waste. Restart the system. I'll check outside. For the first time, Zyra didn't argue. She simply nodded. She was beginning to trust him. Ethan Carter stepped cautiously into the dark hallway outside the manual override room. The red emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the metal walls. He could hear distant rumbling. Not the usual hum of a functioning space station, but something worse. Something was breaking. Behind him, Princess Zyra worked at the control panel, trying to restart the station's emergency power. Her silver eyes were fixed on the screen, fingers moving across the ancient controls. She wasn't used to this kind of work. Manual systems were beneath her people, but for the first time in her life, she realized just how fragile even the most advanced technology could be. Ethan's communicator crackled. A panicked voice spoke through static. Ethan, this is Commander Henshaw. We've lost control of the station's stabilizers. The gravitational drift is pulling us toward The message cut off, replaced by a low, ominous hum. Ethan's stomach tightened. He rushed back into the control room. Princess, we have a problem. Zyra didn't look up. Yes, I know. I'm trying to fix it. No, you don't understand, Ethan said. The station isn't just losing power, it's being pulled toward a gravity well. Zyra's fingers froze over the controls. Her heart skipped a beat. A gravity well. She repeated, her voice quieter now. Yeah, something big. Maybe a collapsed star, maybe a planetary core, I don't know. But if we don't stop this station from drifting, in about an hour, we're going to be crushed into atoms. Zyra's mind raced. That's impossible. Our automated navigation systems would never allow that. Ethan folded his arms. Your automated systems also weren't supposed to fail in the first place, remember? Zyra hated that he was right again. She exhaled sharply. Fine. Then help me restart the stabilizers before we all die. The countdown begins. Ethan knelt beside her, examining the ancient control panel. What's the holdup? The power systems are locked. I need a direct connection to the main reactor to reset them. Zyra's voice was tense. Without it, we can't stabilize the station. Ethan thought for a moment. Where's the reactor access? Zyra hesitated. Sector C12. But it's deep within the lower decks. Ethan checked his wrist display. A holographic map of the station appeared. He quickly traced a path. That area took heavy damage during the power failure. There's no telling if it's still intact. Zyra set her jaw. We don't have a choice. Ethan glanced at her. For the first time, she wasn't mocking him. She wasn't looking down on him. She was trusting him. He smirked. Then let's go save your station, Princess. Into the wreckage. The lower decks were in ruins. Broken metal beams jutted from the walls. Sparking wires hung from the ceiling, and the air smelled of burnt circuits. The damage was worse than Ethan expected. Zyra stepped over a collapsed walkway. How could this happen? Our ships are designed to withstand anything. Overconfidence, Ethan muttered. You guys never planned for failure. Zara shot him a glare, but deep down, she knew he was right. A sudden creaking sound echoed through the corridor. Then, boom! A section of the hallway collapsed behind them, sending debris crashing to the floor. The path back was gone. Zara spun around. We're trapped. Ethan sighed. Not trapped, just committed to moving forward. Zara shook her head. I hate your optimism. Ethan grinned. You'll learn to love it. They pressed forward, weaving through the wreckage. Every second counted. Finally, they reached the reactor control room. The entrance was partially blocked by a twisted metal beam. Ethan inspected it. I think we can squeeze through. Zara crossed her arms. You think I can fit through that tiny gap? Ethan chuckled. Well, you could stay here and wait for the station to explode. Zara rolled her eyes. Fine. They carefully maneuvered through the opening. Inside, the reactor room was flickering with weak, unstable energy pulses. Large coolant pipes hissed with leaking steam, and the entire chamber felt unstable, as if it could collapse at any moment. Zara hurried to the main console. I need a power link. Ethan pulled out his energy module. Will this work? Zara hesitated. Her people had mocked his device earlier. Now it was the only thing that might save them. She took a deep breath. Let's find out. She connected the module to the reactor's main interface. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, a pulse of blue energy surged through the system. The control panels lit up, and the reactor hummed back to life. The station's lights flickered, then stabilized. Ethan tapped his wrist display. Emergency thrusters are back online. Zara activated the stabilizers, reversing gravitational drift now. The station shuddered as the thrusters fired, pushing them away from the gravity well. Outside, the stars shifted, confirming that they were no longer falling toward destruction. After a few tense moments, the emergency systems fully engaged, and the station's alarms fell silent. Ethan let out a breath. We did it. Zara stepped back, staring at the reactor in disbelief. Your human device actually saved the station. Ethan smirked. Still think it's primitive. Zara didn't have an answer. For the first time in her life, she realized that maybe, just maybe, humans weren't as weak as she had believed. The space station stabilized, its trembling structure slowly coming back under control. The once blaring alarms had fallen silent, replaced by a soft hum as emergency systems came online. Ethan Carter exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow. Well, Princess, looks like we're still alive. Princess Zara stared at the control panels, where Ethan's human energy module was still linked to the reactor system. She couldn't believe it. This tiny human device, something she had mocked, had saved the station. She turned to him. I don't understand. Your technology is so. She hesitated, searching for the right words. Ethan smirked. So, basic, primitive. Zara folded her arms. I was going to say inefficient, but clearly I was wrong. Ethan chuckled. Hey, I'll take that as a compliment. Zara sighed. Her people had always believed that Cyrillian technology was the best in the galaxy. Humans were seen as newcomers, useful in some ways, but never on the same level. And yet, this human had just saved thousands of lives. She finally admitted, I misjudged your species. Ethan's grin widened. You're saying humans are actually useful. Zara rolled her eyes. Don't push your luck. Suddenly, Cyrus' communicator crackled. Princess, the station is stabilizing. What happened? Are you safe? Zara tapped her device. I'm fine. The reactor is online, and we've restored power. How? The engineers couldn't access the systems. Cyrus' gaze drifted toward Ethan. She hesitated before answering. A human engineer assisted me. There was a long pause on the other end. A human. The voice sounded skeptical. Ethan leaned closer to the communicator. Yeah, that's me. You're welcome. Zyra quickly ended the transmission, ignoring Ethan's amused expression. Ethan smirked. Not ready to tell your people you needed human help. Zyra sighed. They wouldn't believe it. Ethan laughed. Guess I'll just have to keep proving you wrong. Trouble isn't over yet. Just as Styra was about to respond, a deep rumble shook the station. The emergency lights flickered again. Ethan groaned. Oh, come on. What now? Zyra quickly checked the system diagnostics. Her eyes widened. The outer stabilizer rings are still misaligned. The station is pulling against itself. Ethan looked at the data screen. If we don't fix that, we'll just start drifting again. Zyra nodded. And if the rings break completely, the station will collapse. Ethan clapped his hands together. All right. Where's the stabilizer control? Zyra bit her lip. That's the problem. It's outside the station. Ethan blinked. Wait, outside. Zyra nodded. We need to do a spacewalk. Ethan groaned. Of course we do. Stepping into the void. The airlock doors hissed open, revealing the cold emptiness of space beyond. Ethan stood in his Irelian spacesuit, feeling its sleek, lightweight design. It was far more advanced than human EVA suits, but it still felt strange. Zyra stood beside him, adjusting her own suit. She looked at him skeptically. Are you sure you can handle this? Zyrelian spacewalk suits are more complex than human ones. Ethan smirked. Princess, I grew up fixing ships in zero gravity. I'll be fine. Zyra sighed. Fine. Just don't get yourself killed. Ethan chuckled. Aw, you care about me now. Zyra glared at him. Let's just fix the stabilizers. The dangerous repair. Outside the station, they floated in the vast silence of space. Below them, the massive ring-shaped stabilizers glowed faintly, struggling to maintain balance. Zyra pointed at the control unit on the edge of the stabilizer. That's where we need to go. Ethan nodded. Let's do this. They carefully propelled themselves toward the stabilizer ring. As they reached the control panel, Ethan quickly examined it. Looks like the servo motors are jammed, he said. We need to realign them manually. Zyra frowned. That will take time. Ethan shrugged. Unless you have a magic Zyrelian button that fixes everything instantly, we're doing this the old-fashioned way. Zyra sighed. Fine. They worked quickly, using magnetic tools to adjust the stabilizer's mechanisms. The ring shuddered as it slowly realigned, its rotation stabilizing. Ethan wiped imaginary sweat from his forehead. Not bad for a primitive species, huh? Zyra gave him an unimpressed look. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Ethan grinned. A little. Suddenly, Zyra's helmet communicator beeped. Princess, an unidentified ship is approaching the station. Zyra's heart skipped a beat. What? Who? We don't know, but they're not responding to hails. Ethan's smile disappeared. That's never a good sign. Zyra quickly secured the stabilizer. We need to get back inside. Now, the mystery ship. The moment they re-entered the station, the control room was in chaos. Zyrelian officers were scrambling for answers, trying to identify the incoming ship. Zyra marched to the main console. Status report. An officer saluted. The ship is of unknown origin. It's heavily shielded and approaching fast. Ethan narrowed his eyes. No communications. That's suspicious. Zyra agreed. In galactic diplomacy, an unannounced arrival was rarely a good thing. The officer hesitated. Princess, we detected human energy signatures on the ship. Zyra turned sharply. What? Ethan frowned. Wait, human. Zyra looked at him. Is it one of your ships? Ethan shook his head. No way. Human vessels always announce themselves. If this one isn't, then something's wrong. The officer gulped. They're activating their docking sequence. Zyra's mind raced. Who were they? Why were they here? And most importantly, were they friend or foe? The space station trembled slightly as the mystery ship completed its docking sequence. Alarms blared, and the control room was filled with tension. Ethan stood beside Princess Zyra, his arms crossed. So, are we letting them in, or are we pretending we're not home? Zyra shot him a look. We don't hide. We confront. Ethan smirked. All right, but if they have bad intentions, I hope you have a plan. Zyra turned to her officers. Send a security team to the docking bay. I want to know who they are before they step foot inside my station. An officer nodded and relayed the command. Ethan checked his wrist display, scanning the ship's energy readings. Still no transmissions from them, he muttered. That's weird. Even pirates usually send demands. Zyra's silver eyes narrowed. Then we should be prepared for anything. Face to face with the unknown. The docking bay was filled with heavily armed Zyrilian guards, standing in formation. Zyra and Ethan stood at the front, waiting as the airlock door hissed open. The first figure stepped forward, a tall humanoid in a sleek, dark spacesuit. His helmet retracted, revealing a human face. But something was off. His eyes glowed faintly blue, and his expression was unreadable. Behind him, several others followed. They all looked human, but their movements were unnervingly synchronized, as if they were following an unseen command. Ethan whispered to Zyra, I don't like this. Zyra agreed. Something was strange about them. The lead figure spoke, his voice calm but mechanical. I am Captain Orion of the Ascendancy fleet. We are here to reclaim what was taken from us. Zyra frowned. You are human. Captain Orion's head tilted slightly. We were. Ethan felt a chill down his spine. What does that mean? Captain Orion ignored the question. Instead, he looked directly at Zyra. You have something aboard this station that belongs to us. Return it, and we will leave peacefully. Zyra's voice remained firm. I don't know what you're talking about. Orion's glowing eyes flickered. Then you are making a mistake. The demand. Ethan exchanged a glance with Zyra. This was not a normal human crew. They seemed enhanced. Zyra kept her expression neutral. If you tell us what you're looking for, perhaps we can find it. Orion's gaze flicked toward Ethan. You. Ethan blinked. Me? Zyra stepped forward. Explain. Orion's voice remained steady. You carry knowledge that is ours. Knowledge of a technology that was lost long ago. Ethan frowned. I don't know what you're talking about. Orion's expression didn't change. Your energy module. The one you used to restore this station. That technology was not meant to exist anymore. Ethan glanced at Zyra. They're talking about my generator. Zyra folded her arms. What do you mean, not meant to exist? Orion took a step forward. That device is based on an ancient human design, one that was sealed away centuries ago. The Ascendancy was created to eliminate such things. Ethan shook his head. Wait, so you're some kind of cleanup squad? You destroy advanced human tech? Orion nodded. Humanity was once far more powerful than it is now, but that power was dangerous. Our mission is to ensure it never returns. Zyra's mind raced. You mean, you're here to take his technology? Orion's eyes glowed brighter. We are here to take him. The Zyrilian guards immediately raised their weapons. Ethan took a step back. Whoa, I'm not going anywhere. Orion's voice remained calm. You do not understand. The knowledge within you is a threat. If left unchecked, it will lead to war. You must come with us. Zyra clenched her fists. If you think you can just walk in here and take a human engineer against his will, you are mistaken. Orion's expression didn't change. We do not wish for conflict, but we will complete our mission. The tension in the room was suffocating. Zyrilian guards stood ready, weapons locked onto Orion's group. Ethan's heart pounded. Zyra, If these guys are as advanced as they seem, we might have a problem. Zyra's voice was cold. Then let them see what happens when they underestimate Xyrelian strength. For the first time, a hint of emotion flickered in Orion's expression. Very well. His hand rose slowly, and the lights in the docking bay flickered. A strange, humming energy filled the air. And then, the station's systems shut down again. A fight for freedom. Darkness swallowed the station as the emergency power failed. The only light came from the faint blue glow of Orion soldiers. Ethan whispered, "Okay, I really don't like this." A Xyrelian guard fired first. A bright energy bolt shot toward Orion, only to stop midair. Ethan's eyes widened. Oh, that's not normal. Orion raised his hand, and the energy bolt dispersed like dust. His voice remained calm. "Do not resist. We do not wish to harm you." Zyra's voice was sharp. "Too bad, because we are going to stop you." She grabbed Ethan's arm and pulled him behind cover as her guards opened fire. The docking bay erupted into chaos, energy blasts lighting up the dark room. Ethan's mind raced. How do we stop guys who can block energy weapons? Zyra's jaw tightened. "We don't fight with weapons." Ethan blinked. "Then what do we fight with?" Zyra pulled out a small data module from her belt. "Information." Ethan frowned. "What's that?" Zyra's eyes burned with determination. "A security override. If we can reach the main control room, I can lock them out of the station." Ethan nodded. "All right. Then let's move." They ducked through the chaos, dodging enemy fire. Orion's soldiers advanced slowly, unaffected by the Xyrelian attacks. Ethan and Sarah reached the corridor leading to the control room. But just as they were about to enter, Orion appeared in front of them. "You cannot run." Zyra gritted her teeth. "We're not running." Orion's glowing eyes locked onto Ethan. "Come with us, and no one else will be harmed." Ethan clenched his fists. He wasn't about to let some mystery humans decide his fate. He looked at Zyra. "We're going to outthink them, right?" Zyra smirked. "Always." They turned and ran toward the control room. Because this fight wasn't just about weapons. It was about who controlled the station. The corridor was dimly lit, emergency lights flickering as Ethan and Sarah sprinted toward the control room. Behind them, Captain Orion and his glowing-eyed soldiers advanced without rushing, their footsteps eerily synchronized. Ethan's heart pounded. "I'm starting to think these guys don't get tired." Zyra smirked. "Then we just have to move faster." They rounded a corner, and Zyra slapped the control panel, sealing the bulkhead doors behind them. "Will that hold them?" Ethan asked, catching his breath. Zyra checked her wrist display. "For now. But Orion is clearly using some kind of hacking ability. If he gets into the station's systems again, this door will open like paper." Ethan frowned. "Then we have to reach the control room before he does." The race against time. The control room was just ahead, its doors standing wide open. Inside, Xyrelian officers worked frantically, their screens flashing with warning symbols as Orion's forces tried to override security. A high-ranking officer, Commander Zoreth, turned as Zyra and Ethan entered. "Princess, we're losing control. The invaders are attempting a full system override." Zyra tossed the security override module onto the main console. "Not if I stop them first." Zoreth quickly inserted the module, and a holographic display lit up, showing the entire station. Red areas indicated systems that had been compromised by Orion's forces. Ethan studied the map. They've already taken engineering, docking control, and part of the main security grid. Zyra clenched her fists. "They're cutting off our escape routes." Zoreth's voice was tense. "Princess, if they take full control, they can vent the oxygen, shut down life support, or even detonate the reactor." Ethan exhaled. "So, no pressure, huh?" Zyra's mind raced. She had to think like a strategist, not just a warrior. Orion was using technology and intelligence to outmaneuver them, not brute force. She turned to Ethan. Your human energy module, it doesn't just power systems, right? It can also disrupt them. Ethan's eyes widened. Yeah, it can send an energy surge into the network. If we channel it through the right system, we might be able to lock them out completely. Syra's lips curled into a smile. Then let's do it. The counterattack begins. Ethan pulled out his energy module, a small metallic cylinder glowing with blue light. He quickly connected it to the control panel, fingers working fast. All right, he said, we can either shut them out of the system or make their tech go completely haywire. But I can't do both at once. Syra thought quickly. If we shut them out, they might still force their way in. But if we disrupt their tech, Ethan grinned, we make their fancy glowing eye tricks useless. Syra nodded. Exactly. Do it. Ethan activated the module, and the control room lights flickered as an energy surge raced through the station's network. The unexpected effect. Elsewhere in the station, Orion's soldiers suddenly staggered. Their synchronized movements broke apart, and some of them collapsed, clutching their heads. Their glowing eyes flickered like malfunctioning screens. Orion, standing just outside the bulkhead door, narrowed his eyes. He touched the side of his head, as if hearing something only he could perceive. One of his soldiers turned to him, his voice strained. Commander, something is interfering with the link. Orion's face remained unreadable. Adapt. Regain control. But even as he said it, more of his soldiers were struggling. Whatever Ethan had done, it was working. The final stand. Back in the control room, Zorath watched as red warning zones on the station's holographic map began turning blue again. It's working. Their systems are failing. Syra turned to Ethan. How long will it last? Ethan scratched his head. Well, depends. If their tech is as advanced as I think, they'll recover eventually. Syra's expression hardened. Then we have to make sure they don't get that chance. She turned to Zorath. Deploy security teams. Capture as many of them as possible. Zorath saluted. At once, Princess. Ethan leaned against the console. Okay, that's great and all, but what about Orion? As if on cue, the bulkhead door behind them shuddered violently. Ethan groaned. Oh, come on. Can't we have 5 minutes of peace? The door buckled inward, and with one final metallic screech, it was ripped open. Orion stood there, unaffected by the energy disruption that had crippled his soldiers. His glowing eyes flickered, but he remained strong. You are delaying the inevitable, he said calmly. Surrender. Syra stood tall. Not happening. Orion studied her, then turned his gaze to Ethan. Human ingenuity. It is both your greatest strength and your greatest danger. Ethan met his stare. Yeah. Well, it just beat you. Orion tilted his head. For now. He raised his hand, and suddenly, every fallen soldier in the station stood back up. Ethan's stomach dropped. Okay, I take it back. This guy really doesn't like losing. Syra clenched her fists. This isn't over. Orion gave a small, knowing nod. No, it is not. Then, without warning, he and his soldiers vanished, their bodies dissolving into glowing particles. The room fell silent. Syra's voice was sharp. What just happened? Zorath checked the monitors. They're gone, Princess. Their ship just disappeared from our scanners. Ethan let out a breath. Did we win? Syra didn't answer immediately. Something felt off. Orion had retreated, but not in defeat. No, he had left because he chose to. That meant only one thing. This was just the beginning, Syra muttered. Ethan sighed. Great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. The control room remained silent, the tension thick in the air. The station's systems had stabilized, and Orion's soldiers had vanished. But neither Syra nor Ethan felt like they had won. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. So, just to be clear, they disappeared into thin air. Zorath checked the scanners again. There's no trace of their ship. It's as if they were never here. Zaira frowned. No, Orion isn't the kind of enemy who simply gives up. She turned to Ethan. You said earlier that his soldiers were malfunctioning. What if Orion retreated because he knew they couldn't fight anymore? Ethan thought for a moment. That would make sense. My energy surge disrupted them. So maybe he needed to regroup. Zorith crossed his arms. Then he'll come back. Ethan sighed. Yeah, but next time, he won't just walk in and ask politely. Zaira clenched her fists. We need to find out what Orion really is before that happens. She turned to Zorith. Gather every bit of data we have on Orion and his so-called Ascendancy. I want to know where they came from. Zorith nodded. Right away, Princess. A hidden past. An hour later, Zaira and Ethan stood before a holographic archive in the station's research lab. Zorith had gathered all available records on human history and the Ascendancy fleet. Zaira folded her arms. Orion said humanity was once far more advanced. But according to this, humans were never known for using the kind of technology he had. Ethan frowned as he scrolled through the data. Wait a second. Look at this. He zoomed in on an ancient historical record, one that had been buried under centuries of classified data. The file was old, thousands of years old. The document detailed an event called Project Ascendancy. Zaira read aloud. A secret project designed to enhance human intelligence and create a superior civilization. But something went wrong. Ethan's eyes widened. Oh, that's not good. The more they read, the more disturbing the truth became. Project Ascendancy had involved merging human minds with artificial intelligence, creating a perfect, logical species, but at a terrible cost. Ethan exhaled. They didn't just enhance humans. They erased their emotions, their individuality. Zaira's voice was cold. They turned themselves into something, not human anymore. Ethan stared at the files. And they didn't just disappear. They went into hiding, watching from the shadows. Zaira finished the sentence. And now, they think humanity should never regain its lost technology. Orion's return. Before they could process this revelation, alarms suddenly blared across the station. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Please tell me that's just a drill. Zorith's voice came over the intercom. Princess, we have an unidentified energy surge approaching the station. Zaira and Ethan rushed back to the control room. The holographic display showed a small but powerful disturbance in space just outside the station. Ethan squinted. That looks like some kind of portal. Zaira clenched her jaw. He's back. A moment later, Orion's voice echoed through the station speakers. You have learned the truth, he said. Now you must decide what to do with it. Ethan crossed his arms. Oh great, he's giving us a moral lesson now. Orion continued. Humanity was once powerful, but it nearly destroyed itself. We erased our emotions so we could never make those same mistakes again. Zaira's voice was firm. And now you want to erase us. Orion was silent for a moment. Then he said, No, I want to offer you a choice. Zaira and Ethan exchanged a glance. What kind of choice? Ethan asked. The technology you carry, the knowledge within you, will bring war, Orion said. You can hand it over to us, and we will ensure it is never used again. Or, Zaira narrowed her eyes. Or what? Or you keep it, Orion said. But if you do, we will return. And next time, we will not be so merciful. The station fell silent. Zaira turned to Ethan. This is your choice. Ethan looked down at his energy module. He had built it to help, not to cause war. But if he gave it up, he would be giving up a piece of human progress. He took a deep breath. I'm not handing this over. Zaira nodded. Then we'll be ready when they come back. She turned to the control panel. Orion, you underestimate one thing. And what is that? Orion asked. Zaira's silver eyes glowed with determination. Humanity doesn't just survive. We evolve. Orion was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "We shall see." The energy surge outside the station vanished. Orion was gone again. But they all knew he would be back. A new beginning. Ethan let out a deep breath. Well, that was dramatic. Zyra smirked. You humans do seem to have a talent for drama. Ethan chuckled. And for surviving things we're not supposed to. Zoreth approached them. Princess, what now? Zyra looked at Ethan, then at the holographic display of the galaxy in front of them. She smiled. Now, we prepare. Ethan grinned. You're really not scared of them, are you? Zyra tilted her head. No, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that humans are full of surprises. Ethan laughed. That's probably the nicest thing you've ever said about me. Zyra rolled her eyes. Don't get used to it. As the station returned to normal, one thing was certain. This was not the end. It was only the beginning.